Hey, everybody. Welcome into the Ben Maynard program. Thanks so much for being here. Before we get rolling, in case you weren't aware, I posted a new episode yesterday. We had our very first guest on the show, Brian Jaffe. If you haven't checked it out, check it out because it's good stuff. As a reminder, the program is now available on multiple podcast outlets: Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Podcast Index, Podcast Addict, Player FM, Podchaser, Pocket Casts, and Spotify. And of course, if you can't resist my pretty face, check it out on YouTube. And if you do, please subscribe to the channel, leave a thumbs up, and a comment. I'd greatly appreciate it. And speaking of comments, episode 4, the Kiss Live albums ranked. Initially, the comments were off on that video, and I wasn't aware of it. So once I became aware of it, I went back and I made that correction. So comments are now welcome on that episode, and you can hammer me all you want. So, that was a mouthful. So with that, listen, as you can see, we have our very first in-studio guest, and I'm telling you, it's a pleasure for me to have him in. I'll go into this a little bit and explain how we became linked here. As you can see, I've got a KLOS T-shirt here. KLOS is the local rock station here in Los Angeles for those who are listening elsewhere around the country. And Dennis is also wearing a KLOS T-shirt from the Blood Drive. So our association began because we were listeners of the morning program Heidi and Frank, and they have they have events around various areas for the listeners, probably like most radio stations will. And one happened to be down the street from my house probably a year and a half ago. Dennis and his wife were there along with my wife and I. And we ran into each other. As soon as I heard his voice, I knew exactly who he was because he is a regular contributor to the Heidi and Frank program. And with that, it is my pleasure to introduce to you Dennis Lake, a.k.a. Deep Cut Dennis. Welcome to the program, Dennis.
Thank you, Ben. Thanks for having me. It's really an honor. This is a first for me, and I really a privilege to be here.
Well,
with you.
I appreciate you saying that.
And we clicked the minute we met.
That is true. And where we connected was our love of music.
Yes.
And that's where you really made a great connection. You were already a contributor, but you made a great connection on the Heidi and Frank show because of music. I'll get into that. They do a segment called Deep Cut Face Off, and what it is they'll have listeners call in songs from bands that would get normal or regular airplay, but songs in their catalog that never get played or almost never get played. And this is where Dennis comes in, because Dennis, he actually plays by the rules, and this guy goes deep. And I appreciate that, as a lot of hardcore music fans appreciate that. We like the deep cuts, right?
Yes. I always have. I would get an album. Their hits would attract me to the band or the album. And then I would immediately start searching for all the unheard gems.
Yeah.
And it's just so fun to discover that stuff.
It is. And the album cuts, a lot of times, not always, but a lot of times, the album cuts are even better than the hits that they're playing on the radio, right?
I think so.
Yeah.
I would almost always find a song on there that was better than the hits, or 2 or 3.
Right. So with that, being that Dennis is calling in these deep cuts, he was dubbed Deep Cut Dennis. And so it really is a pleasure to have him here in studio.
Yeah,
And
they named me that.
Yeah.
I didn't do that myself.
either way, it's great.
Yeah.
So
I love it.
Yeah.
It's an
Yeah.
honor to be Deep Cut.
and like I said, music is something that for those who really appreciate it, it's just something that speaks to us.
Yeah.
And when it's good, it just gets us right here.
It does, and it creates a feeling of well-being, and it helps you heal. It's just it's an amazing when you connect with music like that.
Absolutely. Yeah. So what I want to do is, why don't you tell us where or when your love of music began?
God, late 50s with a little AM radio,
Mhm.
just searching for great stuff that I liked. Came across Roy Orbison, was one of the first guys I heard, and pretty or what's his song?
Oh, Pretty Woman.
Pretty Woman.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
was
yeah.
right. Yeah, yeah.
Right.
And it just hooked me instantly.
Right.
It started there, and then I was like 10 years old when the Beatles hit and Beatlemania, and then all the other just flooded. The Stones, Jeff Beck, all of it.
That's great. So
So-
your connection was through the radio then?
Yes,
Oh, okay.
yes.
All right. Well, I'll share this really quick. Because we're a little bit, we have a little bit of an age difference. Nothing wrong with that.
I'm an old fart.
But so my love of music began a little bit later than that, about 1972. And yes, I've shared this before, but we pick up new listeners all the time, so I'll share it again. I remember my mother had the 45
Mhm.
of the Beatles' Let It Be.
Yeah.
And we had this huge console stereo made of real wood. And for those who aren't aware, stereos back then were a lot like televisions. They were an actual piece of furniture in your house.
Yeah.
And this thing probably weighed 250 to 300 pounds.
Yeah.
And
I still have my mother's.
oh, that's great. That's great. And my mother took that 45 and she put it on the turntable, and she sat on the floor in our family room where the stereo was. And as the song played, she pounded away on the typewriter and typed out all the lyrics to that song, to Let
Wow.
It Be. And I was amazed. It was on goldenrod paper. I still remember it. And when she was done with that, I held on to that sheet of paper, and I would play that record over and over and over and sing along, because I now had the song lyrics to this. And that was probably long before a lot of artists were including song lyrics in their albums,
Right. And now it's on YouTube or whatever.
Yeah.
The lyrics are there to every song you can think of.
Yeah. And it's good stuff. It's nice to have that available to us as music lovers. Hey, we want to sing along too.
I do it to this day when I'm listening to songs, even if I know the song.
Yeah,
I'll follow along with the lyrics.
I've said it before on the program. I'm a lyric guy. I love lyrics.
Yep, I really pay attention.
Yeah, absolutely. So and yes, I took some notes here, people. So I have to put my glasses on in order to read them. So tell us, can you recall the first album that you bought with your own money?
Yeah, the Beatles' Hard Day's Night.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what was it? What was it about that particular one that attracted you to it?
Well, it was the hottest thing out at the time,
Okay.
and you had to go buy it and listen to it, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And they were just everywhere, and
yeah, that's for sure.
Yeah.
So are you consider yourself a huge Beatles fan?
No. No, I don't. I'm not much of a Beatles fan.
That's great.
Yeah.
Oh, and
It's
just to let everybody oh my gosh, just to let everybody in on this a little bit before we started rolling, Dennis and I, we talked about the new Beatles song that
Yes.
just came out last yesterday or day before. Was it Now
Right.
and Then, right? I think
Yes,
is what it's called.
the
Yeah.
AI enhanced.
Right. And we agreed we're not crazy about AI. Definitely not.
No.
We're music. We consider ourselves music aficionados, and we want
Absolutely.
people playing real instruments, singing real tracks, all that
Yep.
good stuff. So
Yeah.
I just, oh my
Oh,
gosh, that's
yeah.
just,
Sorry,
is-
but no, I'm not. I mean, I went for the Stones, like I said, and
Okay.
Jeff Beck, and these other little bit edgier, harder. And I'm really like, my favorite thing is blues rock, British blues rock, Southern blues rock,
Okay.
you know, that type of thing. So the Beatles are a little poppy for me.
Okay. I gotcha. You know, and I've always thought myself too. I used to kind of play this, I don't know, game, you know, either or, and it would be Beatles or Stones,
Yeah.
you know, and I like them both. I certainly like them both. And I think there's no disputing that the Beatles would be considered the greatest rock band in history.
They started it all, and that's why I had to have
Right.
their album, and you
Yeah.
know that started the whole thing for me.
But for me, and like I said, I really do like the Beatles. But if
Yeah.
I had to choose, then I do lean a little more towards the Stones, and I think it's because it's kind of it's a little dirtier. It's certainly not perfect, and it's got more of a like a street punk vibe to it, you know.
Yeah, and you know they started out and consider themselves to this day to be a blues band.
That's true. That's
You know,
true.
everybody thinks they're a rock band, which they are, but they consider themselves a blues band.
All based in the blues, right?
Yes,
right,
yes.
right. I just
Except for their albums in the '80s. You know, everything went haywire in the '80s.
Well, you know,
Not everything.
there's a lot of it I still
I do too.
really like.
I
but
do too.
but for me now, okay. Do you consider yourself? I mean, do you settle just within the rock space, or
Absolutely not.
okay? So
No.
so tell me about some of the other genres that you like and
Rock,
appreciate.
blues, country,
Okay.
reggae, ska,
Okay.
Motown. I grew up on Motown too.
Okay.
So I pretty much like it all. I'm not a big bluegrass fan.
Okay.
That's about it. I pretty much appreciate it all.
All right. How about some of the country artists that you're into?
Oh, just a lot of the new guys, you know, and even the big names. I like Luke Bryant, and
Okay.
some of those guys.
Gotcha.
I can't think of them right now.
That's all right. For me personally, when it comes to country, and I do like country, I'm not just stuck in the rock space or the hard rock or classic
Yeah.
rock space. You know, I kind of try to broaden myself a little bit.
Mhm.
But when it comes to country, I do. I lean more towards the older artists, the classic artists, like ones that we would have
Mhm.
grown up listening to.
Right.
You know, I love my Kenny Rogers, and I love my Mickey Gilley or Ronnie Millsap,
Yeah.
and you know, just to me, really good stuff. There are some more current artists that I consider that I really do like. I'm not a huge fan, me personally, of what I consider to be modern country stuff that
Mhm.
seems to be more like hip hop with a twang.
Yeah. Yeah. That I don't care for. Now, the newer country that's more like rock and roll based, I gravitate towards that.
Yeah.
I feel like there's some people in country right now that could really do well in rock music.
Sure,
You know?
sure.
Especially guitar players and that.
Yeah, and Keith Urban is just,
Oh.
I mean, I unless you're a huge Keith Urban fan, and even if you are, you may not even be aware of his ability as a guitar player.
Oh,
He's
he's
just
phenomenal.
right?
He's even phenomenal in teaching the guitar.
Mm.
Excellent teacher.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, a couple of the newer, or I shouldn't say newer, but new country artists that I really do like. There's one Heath Sanders. He's
Mhm.
just a good old boy from Arkansas. Worked in the oil fields,
Yeah,
and he sings about that stuff,
yeah.
and that's what I really like. A guy by the name of Austin Moody.
Mhm.
Um, who was pretty big. I think he was pretty big on the chart, or at least on iTunes back a few months ago.
Yeah.
Had a really good song called "I'm Just Saying," but it's that sound, and it's stuff that to me it speaks from the heart, and
Yeah.
when it speaks from the heart, man, it hits you in the heart.
Again, the lyrics, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So all right, yeah. So talk about your first concert and the experience.
Okay, you're really gonna laugh now.
I'm
My
laughing already.
my first concert was 1966 at Dodger Stadium, the
Oh,
Beatles.
oh no way.
Yes.
Serious.
Yeah. Yeah.
Holy cow.
At the time, I'm
That's
not a
great.
big Beatles fan.
Yeah.
Now, I appreciate them. I love them, especially when you separate them up, get, Harrison and them doing their own thing.
Right.
I really
Right.
appreciate it more there. But, you know, how do you not go to that?
Wow.
Quite an impression.
I am stumped.
Yeah.
So how old were you at that time? 10, 11 years old?
14.
Oh, 14. Okay.
Yeah. Wait a minute. 12.
12.
12.
Okay. So what was that like for you to be in that atmosphere with the Beatles?
It was surreal because I had never been to any kind of event that large or that like crazy because
Right.
people were insane over them,
Yeah.
and then yeah, to see them there, they were far away, but um
Yeah. Yeah.
just to be in the place with the biggest thing on the planet at the time, really, you
Absolutely.
know, it was surreal.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah. I knew you'd like that one.
Yeah, to be 12 years old.
Yeah, 12, 13.
Yeah, yeah.
Whatever.
But I mean, for the opportunity to see the Beatles.
Yeah, period,
Right.
regardless.
Because I think it was after that. Well, I don't know if it was after Dodger Stadium, but was shortly after that, they never toured again.
Yeah,
They just became strictly studio rats.
yep, put out albums and that was it.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
Man, so there weren't a lot of chances to take that in. Who'd you go
No,
with?
my next door neighbor, a lady named Phyllis, she was a couple years older than me,
Mhm.
and times were so different. My mother allowed me to go with my teenage neighbor, and
Yeah.
everything was fine.
Wow.
But yeah, she was a huge, huge Beatles fanatic.
And I'm sure that she was probably screaming her head off the
Oh,
entire show like the rest of the women
oh,
in the crowd.
oh, the whole place was going nuts. I'm this little kid just going,
What are these
this
girls
is
doing?
amazing. Yeah.
There's some other, artists that, their their love began, or they realized that that's what they wanted to do. They wanted to travel down the road of rock star, musician, whatever you want to call it, when they saw the Beatles on Ed Sullivan.
Yep. And I
And
remember that night.
wow,
I
really?
remember sitting there an hour before the show just waiting for it to come on.
And then it comes on, the Beatles take the stage, they start singing, and you can't even hear them because the
Yeah.
girls in the crowd are screaming.
Yeah.
And that's what attracted a lot of guys. Oh, that's it. I've got to play music now, because they wanted the girls screaming after them.
Yeah.
That's it. That's for me right
You
there.
know the song, Play Guitar, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it was pretty insane.
Man. Yeah. And then my first concert experience was at 14 years old, going to see Kiss at the Fabulous Forum.
That was the Beatles of that time, basically, right?
Yeah.
I mean, they were huge.
Yeah, there was a period of time there where you're right, they were on top of the world.
Yeah.
But that was my first experience, and I had gone with Patrick Sorelli and his dad. He was
Yeah.
a childhood friend, and we were probably the only Kiss geeks amongst our group of friends.
Yeah.
And so I remember I remember Patrick, he tells me one day that he sees an ad in the LA Times calendar section. That was when
Yeah, I remember that.
right, they used to post all the concerts in the area and all this stuff, and it'd be 6 months out or whatever. And he says, "Oh
Yeah.
no, tickets are going on sale." And we rode our bicycles down.
Where was it?
It was at the Forum,
Mm-hmm.
and we rode our bicycles to the ticket agency, and I don't know, we paid about $17 or something
Oh,
for our
yeah.
tickets. We had pretty good seats. I mean, they weren't great, but they were decent. And his dad took us, and the three of us went. And like I said, my first concert, a band that I was just
Yeah.
a geek over, and they come on the stage, and it's nothing but bombs and flash pots and color and everything else, and it was quite a spectacle. And for a 14-year-old kid, your jaw's on the floor.
That had to be equal to what I experienced with the Beatles, as far as a spectacle.
Yeah.
I just saw Kiss a couple years ago.
Okay.
And yeah, their show's amazing. I guess it's the Guinness Book of World Record for pyrotechnic show, correct?
Oh, I don't
believe
know.
it is.
Yeah, it just might be.
Yeah.
It just might be. So talk about some of your favorite musicians or your favorite bands that I mean, the ones that you really like to go deep into.
Journey.
Oh, hey.
Eric Clapton.
Okay.
Jeff Beck. Rod Stewart, especially like with Faces.
All right.
That kind of thing. Oh my gosh, there's just so many. It's hard to recall them all, but that's like my core.
Okay.
Tom Petty.
Yeah.
Those kind of guys. I like Buddy Guy. I just love Buddy Guy.
Mm-hmm.
And now Joe Bonamassa's just
Joe Bonamassa's
incredible.
Yeah, he's a fabulous guitar player too.
Yeah. And then a new guy actually he turned me on to is he's not all that new, but relatively, Chris Buck. Are you familiar with him?
I don't think so.
He's a 32-year-old, just the next Bonamassa. And he's Welsh. And, I just can't say enough about him. Really great blues player. He's also in a band called Cardinal Black,
okay,
which they formed years ago. They're all from Wales. And the singer, they came over here to record because they were having a lot of popularity over there. And for some reason, the singer he was over it. So he left, went back to Wales. That was like 2010, 2011. Now, fast forward to 2021, they got back together and they put out an album.
Okay.
And it's pretty phenomenal. It's more of a rock album. And then this Chris Buck is just incredible on the guitar.
Well,
a couple others.
Yeah, no, go ahead.
That are like, or another one that's like off the beaten path is a band called Mo Lauda and the Humble.
Okay.
And they're just, I don't even know how to describe them, but I really dig them.
Hey, we've talked about it and I've mentioned it and it's just, it's what gets you right here.
Yeah.
And it makes you feel something right here. And that's what matters.
Yeah.
For me, I've said previously that I do everything for me originates in the rock space and hard rock, classic rock. I like that, but I've always appreciated disco.
That's right there with the Beatles for me.
Really?
Yeah. And that was like my prime era, but when disco hit, I kind of quit dancing. Disco didn't resonate with me, It didn't.
Well, I appreciate disco. And we've talked about our appreciation and our love for country music as well. But I like pop music. More to bring it in a little more, like top 40. Top 40 radio.
Yeah.
And what I always appreciated about top 40 radio was, early, I would say in my formative years, high school years, so to speak. You would hear a rock song, you'd hear a country song, back that up with an R&B song or
Yeah.
a disco or a dance song. And then as we got into the 80s and the MTV era, then you got new wave in there as well.
Right.
So you got a mix of all of that. And I really started to grab a hold of a lot of that and appreciate a lot of that.
Mhm.
So I just thought it was good stuff. And it's unfortunate that radio isn't what it is anymore, be it top 40, rock, anything. It's just
Yeah.
not the same.
It's so programmed and commercial now.
Yeah. Definitely. So what else did I have here? Let me check these notes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how I used to like dig into these deep cuts as well is, I would get into a band, then I would start researching every member of that band,
Yeah.
what they did in that band, where they came from, and what they went on to do in their career afterwards. And so in doing that, I'll discover bands people have never heard of and with some really great music that I use for deep cuts,
Yeah, absolutely. And I think what's lost now and just it's been lost for quite some time is just with the easy accessibility to music.
Yeah.
It's so easy to not appreciate it like we did. We would take an album when we were kids and we'd put it on the stereo.
Right.
And what would we do? We would sit there and look at the cover. We would open it up.
Yep.
We would read the liner notes, just like you said. You
Yeah.
want to know what these guys are
Down
doing.
to the copyright.
Right. Who's playing what? Who's producing what? Who's
Yeah.
doing the sound? Who's mixing it? Who's
Exactly.
producing it? All that stuff.
Yeah.
And of course, album artwork was something else
Oh.
back then too.
What's your favorite album cover?
Wow, it's hard, but I mean, Journey's right there, and they've got some really, really great album covers. But I would say there's a couple of artists that are really well known for their album covers, and that would be Ken Kelly, who did several album covers for Kiss and Rainbow, and then Roger Dean, who did Yes and Uriah Heep, and some wonderful stuff. Great stuff.
One that always used to just mesmerize me and still does is Savoy Brown, Looking In. I don't know if you
I'm
know
not
that.
even familiar with
Very
that.
cartoonish, very ghoulish skull, guys peering in the eyeball. It's just neat.
Okay, what's that one again, Dennis, for everybody?
That is Savoy Brown, Looking In.
Looking In.
Yeah, that's the album and also the title cut.
Write it down, check it out.
Yeah, dig into Savoy Brown. They're great. And
I remember that was one of the deep cuts that you called in on the show. You sent me a text.
I've done a couple.
I think you sent me a text that morning too. You said,
Yeah.
I'm gonna call this one in. Check it out.
Yeah, I think I did. Yeah. I've done a couple of theirs. I really like it. And Ken Simmons just passed away like a year ago, and he was playing right up to the very end.
Wow,
I really enjoyed them.
Yeah, I remember. Remember you sent me a text also when Jeff Beck died.
Oh, yeah.
Now I don't go deep into Jeff Beck.
That broke my heart.
And I remember that. We texted back and forth a little bit on that. Now, of course, I mean, the legend of Jeff Beck speaks for itself. And like I said, I don't go deep, but I do. And I could hear this one over and over and over again. And that's Beck's Bolero.
Oh, yeah. Which, Jimmy Page wrote that song.
Really?
Yeah. And plays on it.
Okay.
And so does John Paul Jones. I believe. So, and speaking to that, that's another one you guys should look up. The Jeff Beck Group, their debut album, Truth. Jeff Beck, came from the Yardbirds.
Yeah.
And out of this group spawned so many other legendary groups. You had Keith Moon was involved in this, Jimmy Page, John Paul Jones, Rod Stewart, Ronnie Wood, Jeff Beck himself. I mean, that is so instrumental in, what rock became.
take the Yardbirds and then
Yep.
just build the family tree
There
from
you
there.
go. Exactly.
It's
Because
just-
Clapton,
Yeah.
Page, and Jeff Beck all came through the Yardbirds.
And it just, I mean, that tree
Yeah.
just goes and
Yeah.
it just sprouts and has so
It's-
many branches.
It's like, the Beatles were instrumental in starting this,
Right.
but like the Yardbirds for rock and roll, it's almost like the,
For
The
for
beginning.
for like the harder bluesy rock,
the Led
that would kind of
Zeppelin
be
type.
the
Yeah.
like the soil with which that sprouted from.
Yeah.
Yeah.
On that album, Rock My Plimp, if you listen to that, it's Led Zeppelin.
Wow.
Before Led Zeppelin.
Probably the Jimmy Page influence, huh?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. That's
And
that's
they
so
didn't all
cool.
play on all the songs, but they all influenced it.
Yeah.
And they actually, it is where the concept for Led Zeppelin came up.
Mm.
They were discussing this super band, all of them guys together. And, Keith Moon went one way, and Jimmy Page, John Paul Jones left that group and started Led Zeppelin.
Right.
So,
Right.
I mean, thank you, Jeff Beck.
See-
And I saw him a month before he died.
Oh, yes, that's right. You did
Ugh.
let me know that too. See, that's why Dennis is on the program this morning. Yes.
Yeah, it's
that's
called
why.
OCD.
No, it's called music history here. And
I love it.
and this is what this program is all about, is
Yeah.
people talking about their story. And in this here, we're talking about our story in music,
Yes.
and I've let everybody know, I've let the audience know that certainly when there's no guest, we're going to talk a lot of music,
Yeah.
but I want to get a lot of music people on here to discuss their story as well.
Yeah.
And it's not just for the famous. Everyone's got a story. I told you that before, and that's why I
Yeah.
mentioned I wanted you on this program. So
Yeah, because I'm certainly not famous.
no, don't let him fool you, because he is famous in radio world, especially in Los
I don't
Angeles.
I appreciate it.
Dennis has his place.
Thank you. It's just something I've always loved. And when they started the segment, I about fell off my chair because I couldn't believe it. I pick up my phone and I have a playlist called Deep Cuts.
Right.
And there's like 3,000 songs in there. This is when they first started. I'm like,
Wow.
you got to be kidding me. So I couldn't believe. I'm like, this is for me.
It was built for you. Yes, it was
Yeah.
actually built for you.
And there's other people on there like me as well. And I've noticed too, it started off where people just call in a song, go away. A lot of it was songs they just hadn't heard in a while. They weren't
Mhm.
really deep cuts,
Mhm.
which
Mhm.
I appreciate those too. But I take it real serious, a deep cut.
Play by the rules.
Yeah. I've even called in songs they couldn't find before. So,
Well,
but,
yeah. Well, speaking of the deep cut, one of the first ones I remember you calling in
mhm,
was by Journey, and
one of our favorites.
one of our favorite bands. So we can talk a little bit about this.
Yes.
And it was In My Lonely Feeling,
Yes.
Conversations.
Yes.
And that got me going, because and probably most of that audience has no idea. Probably most of this audience right here watching you and I
Yeah.
has no idea about that song, because so many.
None of them did.
Right.
I remember all of them going, I never heard that before. Probably should.
As Journey fans,
Mhm.
we know that the band trajectory took off as soon as Steve Perry entered.
In a different trajectory than it was headed, I believe.
Well, yes, certainly in the we'll call the Mach 1 of Journey. We'll call it Mach 1. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was more of a progressive, more of a bluesy fusion type band.
Kind of a Peter Greenish, early Fleetwood Mac kind of feel.
Right. And a lot of the a lot of the material, for those of you who aren't aware, Journey put out 3 albums pre Steve Perry. So Mach 1 of Journey.
Yeah.
And good stuff though. Obviously you called in with the song, but good stuff.
Yes.
But a lot of it maybe not as radio friendly.
Right. And when I called this song in, I said, this is Journey like you've never heard before.
Mhm.
It's not the
Mhm.
Journey you're used to.
Exactly. And then Herbie Herbert got this thing, this idea. We need a face of the band. We need a
Yeah.
pretty face of the band.
And what a voice.
Yeah. Oh, and enter Steve Perry. And like I said, the trajectory of the band changed. The
Yeah.
sound did change a little bit because of Steve's one, his voice,
Right.
and then 2, his songwriting
Yes.
ability as well, or his
Yeah.
songwriting talents were a little different than that of Greg Raleigh.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I really liked the way they came together as co-writers, and when they would have the
Yes.
trade-off on the lead
Yeah.
vocals on a few songs, that was always really good. Just really, really good stuff.
Oh, it was great.
And-
And like I mentioned, it's different. It doesn't mean I don't like it just as much.
Right. And I'll be honest, that's where I came in on Journey, was Steve
Mhm.
Perry.
Right.
I wasn't aware, and I mean,
That's where most people came in on Journey.
because that's when they started to get
Yeah.
on the radio.
See, I was aware of
Right.
Greg Raleigh and Neil Sean from Santana.
Right.
So when they started this, I was already interested.
Right.
And man,
Right. And like I said, outside of really the Bay Area, they got a little bit of local play on the
Mhm,
radio up
mhm.
there, but nationwide, or even just in California,
not
they
with
were,
the first 3 albums.
they just weren't going to really get
Yeah,
any play.
yeah.
So enter Steve Perry, and everything just goes straight up from there. But
Yes,
but yeah, like you
I
said,
miss him to this day.
like you said, what a voice though. What a
Yeah.
voice. In my estimation, I say it always. I will always say the Steve Perry, I think, greatest voice in rock and roll.
I would
music.
not argue with you on that. And as good as Pineda is, the guy
Mhm.
that's taking
Right.
over for him,
Yes.
it's not Steve Perry. I just saw them recently.
Right. So you saw them with Toto.
Yes.
We're gonna get to Toto in just a moment.
boy, are we.
We're gonna get to Toto. Yeah. But we'll finish up here on Journey.
Yes.
Yeah. Arnel Pineda, I like him. I don't have anything against him.
Me either.
For me,
Closest voice you could get to Steve Perry on the planet
well, I will tell you this.
that I've heard.
For me, I really, really like the Steve Ajeri years.
Mhm.
Who, right after Steve Perry
Mhm.
decided he wasn't going to be coming back to the band, and he was going to,
Yeah.
bow out in about 1996.
Yeah.
Then, enter Steve Ajeri.
Mhm.
And Steve Ajeri came from a band, Tall Stories,
Mhm.
but he wasn't in music at that time.
Right.
He was working construction for the Gap
Yeah.
at that time. But he comes into the fold, and I remember seeing one of their very first shows. They did this small theater tour, not a club tour, but a theater
Mhm.
tour. And their one date in LA was at the Wiltern Theater in December of 98.
What a place that is.
Yeah, great place.
Yeah.
And I went to the show. I had really good seats, and the music starts. They open up with Separate Ways, and I see this guy come on the stage. I'm aware we've got a new singer here, because
Yeah.
I mean, big Journey fan, so I know what's
Yeah.
going on.
And you're thinking, is he going to measure up?
And he opens his mouth and starts singing, and I thought,
Oh,
wow.
yeah.
Wow. Not exactly like Steve Perry. What I will say, I will compare the differences to me, to my untrained ear. As I've told everybody, I'm not a musician, but I know what I hear. That Arnel Pineda sings the notes.
Mhm.
Okay.
Mhm.
But Steve Ajeri seemed to have that same soul in the sound of his voice that Steve Perry does.
Yeah.
And that's what I like. And look, I can talk about Steve Ajeri all day. I'm that big of a fan, but this isn't about that. And it's not about Journey at all. We're just going into this. But the thing is, nobody can sing Steve Perry
No,
like Steve Perry.
no,
No one.
no, that's unmatchable.
And even now to this day, Steve Perry can't sing Steve Perry.
I know,
you know, like he
that's
did.
sad. That's really sad.
And that, yeah, that's
I really feel that's so heartbreaking. I just can't even imagine how he must feel to, have that taken away from him.
well. I mean, I don't know if it's taken away. I just think that he
As a certain,
just painted himself into such a corner with
Yeah.
that just beautiful voice. And like I said, it had the it had that crooner soul to it as well.
yeah,
And yeah, he could sing a high note like they're like nobody's business.
Yeah.
And I think that that's just I don't think he wants to go out and have himself compared these days to what he was in his
and
prime.
good for him, because I have seen artists nowadays that should have done that
Yes.
and quit.
Yes.
And God bless them. They're out there doing it. And I'll still go listen to them and enjoy it. But sometimes you get a little sad when you hear him. You go, oh, that's got to hurt.
Right. And I think as music fans, when we go see a live show, especially the artists that we just really love and we grew up listening to, and we dive into their music, and we know the lyrics to every single
Yeah.
one of those songs, and we go see them live, we always hearken back to those good old days when we saw them. And we sometimes can forget, look, we're older now. Well, these guys are older now too.
Exactly.
And look, some of them can still really do it and do it well. And yeah.
Yes. Toto.
And
Steve Lucas.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with having to tune it down.
Not at
sing
all.
in a lower key or anything, or even slow it down just a little bit.
Yep.
Because there's no shame in it. Like I said, we all get older. For an athlete, when they get into their late 30s, early 40s, they can't do it like they did in their 20s.
Nope.
At least as a musician, you can still perform, into your later years. And there's a ton of them that still do it really well.
Oh,
and to
yeah.
your point, there's some that probably should have stopped maybe a few years ago.
Yeah. And I just feel bad for them. I'm glad they're still out there, and God bless them. Keep doing it till you absolutely can't.
Right.
And I'll still appreciate it.
Well, so the next thing, and you're pointing at this book right here. I was going to ask you though,
Mm-hmm.
do you read any of the musicians' books that they put out, their autobiographies or anything like that?
Not really.
Okay.
I haven't done
Okay.
a lot of reading of their books. I'll read about them in,
Okay.
their history and study them, but not necessarily in a book.
Not necessarily a personal story, but
Yeah.
So
I can read, and I do.
Yeah.
I just read Matthew Perry's book.
Oh, really? Oh, yeah. Well,
and
don't want to bring you down, so
No.
we won't go into that.
but I have so many similarities to him. That's funny. And then I see how our paths diverged on that issue.
Right. Well,
so onward.
Rest in peace, Matthew. Yes. I like to read. I don't read as much as I want to. I like to read about. I like to read autobiographies.
Yeah.
I used to like to read a lot about the athletes that I really appreciated, primarily baseball players, because baseball was just such a huge sport for me.
Mm-hmm.
But I do like to read about the musicians that I enjoy. I like their music, so on and so on. And if I can, I'll pick up their book and read it. And I did put this one here on purpose.
Good.
And it's Steve Lukather's autobiography. I think it came out about 5 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And it's called The Gospel According to Luke. And you touched on it. You saw Journey just recently.
Yes.
Toto was opening up those shows.
Correct.
Toto has opened up the last 2 tours for Journey.
Mm-hmm.
And I won't get into the book because I want to talk about Toto. Is that okay
Me
with
too.
Is that okay
Yeah.
with you?
Oh,
All right.
heck yeah.
Good stuff.
Yeah.
You know, for my money, in fact, somebody, what was it? Rolling Stone had some stupid list of 250 guitarists, and
Oh, yeah.
honestly, I never looked at it,
Yeah.
but I heard there was a ton of outrage, and I'd seen somebody post something about just the top 50 that were on
Yeah.
it, and I just scanned the top 50. I'm like, well, let me see. There isn't one guitarist on this list. I mean, there was a couple, most of them, probably 40 of them, I may never have even heard of
Oh,
before.
really?
And
Yeah, those lists are, I don't know where they come
and I'm thinking, okay, let me see. Where are my favorite guitar players?
from.
And apparently Neil Sean was not even on it. And
Oh.
Steve Lukather, I don't believe was on. Well, no, I think Steve Lukather was on it because if I remember correctly, I heard something that Joan Jett was like 11 spots ahead of Steve Lukather on the list. And
No.
God bless Joan
But,
Jett and
yeah.
everything, but come on. Steve Lukather, Neil Sean, 1A, 1B, and I could flip-flop those
Yeah.
at any
absolutely.
day. It depends on how I'm feeling.
Yeah.
In my estimation, those two are absolute master musicians.
Oh, absolutely. No argument.
World class.
Yes.
And that is what I really like about Toto and have loved about Toto is that
which is not even a band.
so to speak.
So to speak.
I mean, you know, for anybody who doesn't know, they
Mhm.
all they were all session musicians.
Right. You know, Steve Lukather was the only constant.
He has been the only and David Paich, at least
Yeah.
through all the recorded stuff. There was a period
Mhm.
where David was going through some health issues, so he took
Right.
time away from touring.
But I feel like Steve's the puppet master.
But Luke has always been there. You
Right.
know, he like you said, he has definitely been the constant.
Mhm.
But this band of session guys, starting with David Paich and Jeff Porcaro, when they were in high school,
Yeah.
and they're playing sessions for
Everybody.
well, yeah, everybody, but Boss Skaggs,
Yeah.
and they brought Steve in because he was interested and he wanted to make some money, and he's wanting to play.
Yeah.
So they bring him in and they start introducing him to people, and he starts doing all kinds of session work. And for those of you who don't know, the members of Toto, especially the original lineup, with David Paich, Jeff Porcaro, David Hungate, who was the original
Mhm.
bass guitar player, Steve Porcaro, Steve Lukather, not counting Bobby Kimball because he was primarily just the lead singer.
Yeah.
But those guys there, they have probably, if you really stop and think about it, Dennis, they probably played on 500 million records sold.
Yeah. One of the, you talk about like 3 degrees of separation. These guys have 1 degree of separation to every major artist on the planet.
Absolutely. Just it's mind blowing to think about it, and so many people don't realize it.
It gave me goosebumps. It did, because I mean, there's very few recordings or songs out there one of these guys or more hasn't touched.
A lot of people don't know this. Toto is pretty much the entire band for Michael Jackson's Thriller.
Yes.
You know, yes,
Eddie Van Halen.
Yeah, and we all know Eddie. We all know Eddie played the solo and beat it.
Yeah.
But Steve Lukather played all the other guitars.
Yeah.
And then of course the remainder of the album as well. Pretty much the entire band. And Steve Porcaro wrote Human Nature. That's his song. And so this is how prolific these guys are. This is, and that's why I say, just
like the Jeff Beck group. This is another one.
Oh.
So influential on all music.
And to be honest, yeah, a lot of people know the name Toto and they think Rosanna, they think Africa, and those are the 2 largest songs in the catalog, and they're great songs. Oh gosh.
I can listen to them over and over.
And I can. You're absolutely right. I can hear those songs over and over and over and not get tired of them.
Yeah. Because each little part in the song, I focus on every time I hear it. It's a different part.
There's just something about it. But for the average fan, that's where it stays.
Yeah.
Maybe a little Hold the Line because that was off the first album.
Yeah.
And what a great guitar solo in that. And I think Steve is like 17 years old, I think, is how old Luke was when he's playing on that. It's like, are you kidding me? You know,
some of those guys that started at 15, like Stevie Winwood, you know, and those guys,
right?
Just how are you doing that?
And that, like I said, Steve Lukather, Neil Schon, and that harkens back when Neil is in Santana playing alongside a legend himself, Carlos Santana, and Neil is holding his ground at 15 years old on a touring stage with Carlos Santana. I mean, so that just speaks to how tremendous these guys are and how talented they are.
That to me is a God-given talent. You can't even teach that. You could perfect it, practice it, develop it, but that's a talent you were given at birth.
It's just something
which I don't have. Like,
hey, I've let everybody know my guitars are in the attic and I can't play a note.
I have a ton of them. I could play a note, maybe 3.
A song. We'll have to have you back so you can play those 3 notes for us.
Okay.
But yeah, I just the thing that really gets to me when it comes to Toto is how much they are not recognized in this country.
One of the most under-recognized bands there is out there, I believe. Yeah, people don't know anything about them. Those songs you mentioned, and that's about it.
They can travel the world and play to sold-out arenas, 20,000 seaters. But if they were to tour by themselves here in the United States, they're playing large theaters, 3,000, maybe 4,000 people if they're lucky.
Well, we ran across people in the parking lot, and I talked to everybody, and I'm like, hey, it's starting, you better get in there. It's starting. And they're like, we don't care about that. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Honestly, this is going to be one of those There I Said It from Heidi and Frank.
Okay.
They blew Journey away that night.
Wow.
I said it. I'm sorry.
Hey, don't be sorry. Don't be sorry because
they did.
They're just 2 absolutely phenomenal bands.
Yeah, and I was shocked, honestly.
Yeah.
As much as I love Toto.
Yeah.
I was shocked. I'm like, oh my God. Because the opening act, they always tone down the audio. They don't get the same.
They don't get the full sound. Yeah.
And for them to do that, I'm like, what's going on?
A couple episodes back, everybody knows I did the Kiss live albums ranked.
Yeah,
and
I watched that.
Did you want to cuss at me?
No.
Okay.
I enjoyed it.
So my point is when it comes to live albums, if people aren't aware of this one, get into Toto 40 Trips Around the Sun.
Yeah.
It's their 40th anniversary. It's a live show in Amsterdam.
Yeah.
And they're playing in front of a packed house, 20,000 people. And man, I will tell you, that is one live album I can hear from start to finish and then start it over and hear it to the end.
Yeah. And that's a rare thing today to be able to just put an album on and let it go.
And let it go. Yeah. But that's the way we listened to music back then.
Yep.
And
I used to go for them deep cuts. But I mean, certain albums.
But you would get through the hit songs before you got to those. You might play that deep cut over again, but we would listen to the whole. We would listen to side 1, boom, flip it over. Listen to side 2, maybe flip it back over again. And that is one live album. I'm telling you right now, if you're not aware of it, you've got to check it out, people.
Yeah.
40 Trips Around the Sun.
Just check out Toto too, but that's the album.
Yeah, and what I love about it is they have such a high standard that the guys they have to bring in to help fill out the sound that they create in the studio are such world class themselves.
Yes.
Warren Hayne, Lenny Castro on percussion.
Yeah.
Those guys alone, how many millions of albums have they played on?
It's mind-boggling.
It
It
is.
really is. You can't. That's like contemplating how many stars in the sky. Seriously.
So when you put that all together, it's like, man, and then you go back and this is Toto here, and this is where it started.
Yeah.
Just a phenomenal band. Just
really
a phenomenal
is.
band.
So underrated. So
Absolutely.
underappreciated.
You said it right there. Underappreciated.
Yeah.
I think they're probably
Not by us.
No, absolutely not. I think there's going to be a Toto show come up here in the future.
You know what? We need to go. Oh, you mean here?
Yeah, no,
when
here.
they play, we need to go.
No, you're absolutely right. And I believe that they're going to be opening again on the next Journey tour.
You know
I think
what?
I saw
I
that.
heard that too.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right.
It's a great bill.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So why not?
No, it was phenomenal.
Well, listen. No. Listen here. Listen here.
No, I know where you're
Don't
going.
let me forget.
Oh, please forget. Yeah, I knew it.
I got it right here. Now, for those watching, for those who listen to Heidi and Frank, you'll
You dirty
appreciate that.
dog.
Yeah, well, that's just the way it goes, Dennis. Dennis and I, we're going to play a little game of Bean Boozled, okay?
Oh, no.
Now, I'm sure most everybody knows, that what Bean Boozled is, nasty tasting jelly beans. So I told Dennis he was going to be in for it. How we're going to play this is I just have some simple music trivia. And Dennis can't be the only one that gets punished. So if Dennis gets the question right, then I eat the bean.
Yeah.
If Dennis gets it wrong, then he's going to eat the bean.
I think I'm going to be eating a lot of beans because
we'll see.
My knowledge just flows out. When I'm asked a trivia question, I go, I dunce.
But it's all music, but
it's for fun.
It covers a lot of genres. We're not going to spin that spinner right there. We're just gonna you're just gonna have a go at it.
Fire away. Here we go.
Yeah. So let's see. I'm gonna start.
My wife's gonna love this.
Here we go. Yeah. I think we'll start with this one right here. This is gonna be an easy one.
Don't be so sure.
Who is the lead singer of Coldplay?
I don't know.
I guess you're eating a bean.
I know. Oh wait, Gavin Rosdale.
No, that's Bush.
Yeah,
that's Bush.
Oh man, you're gonna kill me with this.
I will give you a hint though. We'll give you a hint.
I don't listen to Coldplay, obviously.
I don't either. Used to be married to Gwyneth Paltrow.
Yeah, it's not going to help.
It didn't help.
I kind of know, but I'm not going to pull it. I guarantee you.
Well, it's Chris Martin, so you get the first bean.
Oh, yeah,
there.
I wasn't even close. Okay, here we go. This is going to be a common occurrence.
It could be a good one. It could be a bad one. We're going to find out. You tell me what it tastes like here.
Vomit, probably.
Good thing we have water here, right?
Mm-hmm. I don't know what it is. And it's not horrible.
Oh, all right then. Good for you.
Yeah, no kidding.
All right.
What the heck is it?
I don't know.
It's not great either.
Okay, but it's just not terrible. It's not worth vomiting over, right?
Yeah, I can deal with that.
All right. So the next one, I know you have to get this one. What singer originally performed under the name Davy Jones?
David Bowie.
That's right. That is right. So now it's my turn. I told you were going to get that one. All right. I'll take this one. I think that one, it's going to be like barf or
fun fact. I met Davy Jones of the Monkees in Hawaii. Nice guy.
Oh, yeah.
Uh-oh.
I think this one's barf.
Yeah.
I think this one's barf. I think so. Because it doesn't taste good.
Now I'm loving
it. And I can smell my breath.
Yeah, this one's getting worse the longer it's in my mouth, but I'm
still
not ready to.
You have water right there. Oh, all right. We'll do 3 more. Okay. We won't punish the audience too much. All right. Let's see. Let's try this one right here. Danger Zone by Kenny Loggins was a hit song on which 80s movie soundtrack?
Top Gun.
Bingo.
Yo, enjoy, bro.
My turn. All right. Let's take this orange one right here.
Okay.
All right.
I don't know what that could be.
I don't know.
Isn't there a list that tells you?
Yeah,
what?
there is, but
Yeah.
it's
It's either horrible or it's not.
That's right. Oh, no, this one's actually good. This one's good. I think it might be peach or something. It tastes pretty good.
Oh,
Okay.
man,
All right.
that's no fun. Uh-oh.
Okay.
Okay.
So we got two more.
Okay.
What year was Queen's epic hit Bohemian Rhapsody originally released? Now I'll give you a multiple choice.
Okay.
1974, 1975, 1976, or 1977?
76.
I'm sorry, Dennis. You're gonna have to eat a bean.
Yeah, I was going for it already.
It was
75.
Yeah, 75. Yeah.
I kind of knew it. That's
Yeah.
the year I got married. That's how old I am.
All right.
You know, here's another. There, I said it.
Yeah.
Not a big Queen fan.
Really?
Appreciate them.
Yeah.
Fantastic musicians.
Yeah.
Phenomenal voice. Just not, it doesn't strike that chord with me.
I hear you. I really like a lot of Queen,
Mhm.
but I will tell you, there are songs in probably almost every artist catalog that I like. There's
Yeah,
probably
I
one or
agree.
two songs that if I never hear them again, I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
Just because they've just been so overplayed.
That's the thing too. It could be a lot of that with me
Yeah.
with Queen. It's just over and over and
Yeah.
over.
And with that, I mean, when it comes to Queen, Bohemian Rhapsody is one of those songs.
Yeah.
I mean, it is such a classic. It is such a legendary
So
song.
phenomenal,
Right.
too, but not for me.
And it's just been so overplayed that
Yeah.
there's a burnout factor.
Yeah. And my son will do that. He goes, "So you don't like Queen?" Then he'll play a Queen song. You like that? Well, yeah.
Hey,
you little bastard.
Yeah. See, there's a song by Queen that I wish would get played on the radio, and it doesn't. It never has. It's off the News of the World album.
Mhm.
It's Get Down, Make Love. It's a great
I don't
song. But
Yeah.
when it comes to that, no, they're going to play We Are the Champions.
Yeah.
Or, We Will
Oh,
Rock You, We Are the Champions.
That one makes me want to shoot myself.
Yeah.
Every sporting
But-
event.
Great songs, though. Great
is.
songs, but okay. I never have to hear them again.
Yeah. They've just ruined it.
All right. Last one here,
Oh,
Dennis.
great.
True-
Here, should I just eat the bean?
No.
Okay.
I think you're going to be all right with this one. True or false? Pat Benatar is not in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
True.
Dennis, you're going to have to eat a bean.
Oh, well. I thought you were trying to trick me, really.
No, she just got inducted last year, I think it was. And she made a stand and said, Neil comes with me, which is very deserved.
That's awesome.
It's very
yeah.
deserved. No, I'm not forgetting. Eat your bean.
I
I didn't forget. I let you get by
I was
without
trying to decide here. I'll go with this one.
All right.
Let's see how. Come here. Oh, this will be sad because I actually know her like personal assistant.
Oh, really?
She'll be
See,
pissed.
don't watch this one.
I don't know him.
Yeah.
I just.
Okay, so how was that one? You didn't make any ugly faces.
I think it's mango.
Oh, kind of lucked out here. Yeah, we kind of lucked
Yeah,
out.
yeah. I didn't get a horrible one.
No,
so
and I had
I'm
barf, and
I got a lot wrong.
so-
Well,
Hey, all right. Well, listen, Dennis, this has just been an absolute pleasure. This has been a kick in the pants.
it really has.
It's everything that I hoped it was going to be,
Yeah.
and I thank you so much for coming in today.
Thank you for having me. My pleasure.
Absolutely. And listen, for anybody out there in the Heidi and Frank world, check this out and be listening for Dennis on the radio, especially on Wednesday mornings when they play Deep Cut Face Off.
9:30 Wednesdays.
That's right. So, all right, that's going to wrap it here. But I want to remind everyone that I'm not going to go through all those podcast platforms again. I'm looking at my board right here. It's a mouthful. It is a mouthful. But I do want to encourage everyone, if you are watching this on YouTube, to subscribe to the channel. give me a thumbs up and leave a comment. And if
Yeah.
you don't want to give me a thumbs up, give Dennis a thumbs up. Okay.
He deserves it.
So with that, listen, I want to thank you all for being here. Thanks for listening. And this is the Ben Maynard program. Tell a friend.
Bye.
Hit that right there. That's how